Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're not just wading in, we're diving headfirst into a topic that touches all our lives.
Mm.
How organizations actually protect themselves from the relentless world of cyber threats.
Mm.
Think of it as a behind-the-scenes look at what it really takes to keep our digital data, systems, and privacy safe from attack.
It's an intricate landscape, isn't it? Our mission today is to unpack the layers of digital defense, from the high-level frameworks that guide an entire organization's strategy right down to the nitty-gritty of how a single user gets access
Yeah.
and what happens when something inevitably goes wrong. We've pulled together some fascinating source material, and our goal is for you to walk away not just knowing what these defenses are, but understanding why they are absolutely essential in today's interconnected world.
Absolutely. We've got some fantastic material on threat mitigation, and we're going to break it down piece by piece so you gain a truly well-rounded, nuanced understanding. Get ready for some unexpected insights and plenty of awe moments. Let's jump in. So, to start, we're looking at something that might sound a bit like corporate jargon, but is actually incredibly powerful. The COSO framework. COSO.
Yeah.
Many people outside of finance or risk management might not have heard of it, but it's a huge deal. So what exactly is COSO, and what's its critical connection to cybersecurity?
It's interesting how COSO, the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, is often associated primarily with financial controls.
Right.
But its real power and what makes it so vital for cybersecurity is that it set the industry benchmark for all internal control practices back in 1992.
Oh, okay. Not just finance, then.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The most current version, the COSO 2013 framework, is often visualized as the COSO cube, a three-dimensional model showing how various elements of an internal control system interoperate to manage risk holistically.
A cube. Like, visually,
Yeah, it helps picture the different dimensions. And when you apply this to cybersecurity, it forces organizations to view digital security not just as an IT problem, but as a fundamental business risk, just like financial risk.
so it elevates it.
Exactly. Imagine a data breach isn't just a technical glitch, but something that could completely derail your financial reporting, erode investor trust, or halt critical operations.
Right. Huge impact.
COSO ensures you manage cybersecurity with that same top-level rigor, integrating it into the very fabric of how an organization operates and governs itself, making risk management a core principle, not an afterthought.
That makes perfect sense. It's essentially a blueprint for good governance that extends directly into cybersecurity. So how does it break down the objectives for internal control, and how do those specific objectives apply to keeping our digital world safe?
Right, so COSO classifies internal control objectives into three crucial groups: operational, reporting, and compliance. Each of these has direct and profound implications for effective cybersecurity.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Operational first.
Sure, first, let's talk about operational objectives. These are all about the effectiveness and efficiency of an organization's day-to-day business operations.
Makes sense.
In the cybersecurity context, this means focusing on the performance measures and safeguards that significantly increase the likelihood of your IT assets being robustly protected against cyber threats and fraud.
So things like keeping servers running.
Well, yes, but running securely. Think about it. Are your servers running efficiently and securely? Are your data backups properly maintained and readily recoverable?
Got it. Performance plus security.
Exactly. This objective ensures that the core digital machinery of an organization isn't just functioning, but functioning securely, making it far more difficult for malicious actors to disrupt operations or steal valuable data. It's about building a strong, resilient foundation for all digital activities, ensuring your systems can withstand attacks while remaining productive.
So it's about making sure the digital engine runs smoothly and safely, underpinning everything. What about reporting objectives? That clearly ties into financial integrity. But what's the cyber twist?
Exactly. Reporting objectives emphasize transparency, reliability, timeliness, and trustworthiness, particularly as determined by standard-setting bodies, regulators, and an organization's own internal policies.
Okay.
When we apply this to cybersecurity, it's about ensuring that the controls you have in place are robust enough to prevent cyber incidents from impacting the integrity of both financial and non-financial reports.
Like if a breach messed up sales figures.
Precisely. Picture this. A data breach compromises your sales figures or makes your customer data reports unreliable. This objective demands that cybersecurity measures actively safeguard the accuracy and trustworthiness of all internal and external reporting.
Okay, that's critical for trust.
It's critical for maintaining public trust and accountability, ensuring that the information you rely on to make decisions or that you share with the public hasn't been tampered with or corrupted by a cyber incident.
And then the third objective, compliance objectives. That one sounds like it's all about adhering to the rules.
It is, but its scope in cybersecurity is vast and continually expanding. Compliance objectives are strictly based on adherence to governmental laws and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
In the realm of cybersecurity, this encompasses a wide array of mandates. For example, it includes complying with industry standards like those issued by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology,
Heard of NIST? Yeah.
which provide comprehensive guidelines for securing information systems. It also covers U.S. laws such as HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is absolutely critical for protecting sensitive patient health information.
Right, healthcare data.
And on a global scale, it encompasses international laws like GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which governs data privacy for individuals in the European Union.
GDPR, definitely know that one.
Adhering to these regulations isn't merely about avoiding penalties. It's about building and maintaining public trust, demonstrating due diligence, and avoiding severe legal repercussions that can arise from a cyber breach.
That distinction really clarifies things. So with those three objectives in mind, how does the COSO framework break down the components an organization needs to put in place to achieve them, especially for cyber threats? I know there are 5 core components.
That's right, and applying these 5 components to cybersecurity is where the real practical power of COSO comes into play. The first component is the control environment, often referred to as the tone at the top.
Tone at the top. Okay. Leadership stuff.
Exactly. This is the foundational element that sets the ethical values for an organization, essentially creating a top-down approach that permeates the entire COSO framework throughout the organization.
So how does that apply to cyber?
In a cybersecurity context, this means senior management and governance bodies must act as true champions. They need to proactively raise awareness of cyber threats, guide the development of key IT policies and procedures, provide clear direction on incident response, and educate the entire workforce about their individual and collective roles in safeguarding the company's digital assets and resources.
So it's not just the IT department's job.
Absolutely not. It's about leadership making it unequivocally clear that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Without this buy-in, even the best technical solutions can flounder.
So leadership sets the example and the expectation. What's the next critical piece?
The second component is risk assessment. This involves performing rigorous assessments to evaluate both internal and external factors that could impact an organization's objectives.
Looking for dangers.
Right. When applied to cyber threats, this means tailoring your existing risk assessment procedures to specifically analyze cyber risks. This includes assessing their likelihood of occurrence, how probable is a specific type of cyber attack, and, critically, the magnitude of their potential impact. How much damage could it cause?
Likelihood and impact. Standard risk stuff.
Pretty standard, yeah, but applied specifically here. These assessments provide reasonable assurance that organizations are managing their cyber risks to an acceptable tolerance level. For instance, an organization might decide that a certain type of advanced persistent threat is such a high risk it warrants significant investment in a specific defense,
Okay.
while a less probable, lower impact threat might receive less immediate attention. It's about smart, strategic allocation of resources based on a clear understanding of your specific threat landscape.
And that leads directly into control activities, I imagine, the actual things you do based on that assessment.
Exactly. Control activities are the policies and procedures put in place to ensure that the tone at the top set by the control environment is actually being implemented at all levels of the organization.
The doing part.
The doing part, yeah.
Yeah.
These are the concrete actions and rules that translate the organization's risk management philosophy into practical execution. Examples include having a strict password policy that mandates complexity and regular changes, or requiring multi-factor authentication for accessing sensitive systems.
Like MFA. Okay.
These aren't just suggestions. They are the mandatory policies and procedures that enforce the organization's cybersecurity posture, ensuring that risks identified in the assessment phase are actively mitigated with tangible actions.
So once you have those policies and controls in place, how do you make sure everyone knows about them and understands their role? That sounds like information and communication.
You're right on target. Information and communication focuses on using consistent and relevant language, following best practices for sharing information, and communicating effectively both internally and externally with the right stakeholders, all to support internal controls.
Makes sense. Keep everyone in the loop.
For cybersecurity, this is absolutely crucial. Sharing information about company policies on cyber threats, how to detect potential cyber threats, and how to respond to cybersecurity events is paramount for any organization.
So training, emails.
All of the above. Consider the practical examples. Management reviewing business impact analysis reports that outline the effect of interrupting key business functions due to a cyber incident. Regular employee meetings dedicated to cybersecurity policies, periodic emails reminding the entire company about internal controls, and perhaps most importantly, mandatory annual training on cyber threats and company policies. It's about fostering a culture of informed vigilance, making every employee a part of the human firewall.
And finally, to make sure all this is actually working as intended, there's monitoring activities. How does that play out specifically in cybersecurity?
Monitoring activities is the component where internal controls are assessed on an ongoing basis to identify areas of risk vulnerability and to determine their effectiveness and efficiencies.
Checking if it works.
Basically, yeah. And this is especially important for cybersecurity because attacks are always evolving, meaning defenses need to be continuously validated and adapted.
So it's never really done.
Never. Practical examples of monitoring practices that should be in place, evaluated, and adjusted include regular penetration testing,
And testing, yeah.
where ethical hackers simulate real-world attacks to find weaknesses before malicious actors do, comprehensive vulnerability scanning and assessments, which systematically identify known weaknesses in systems, and periodic phishing reports, which help gauge employee susceptibility to social engineering attacks and the effectiveness of awareness training.
Checking the human element, too.
Absolutely. This continuous feedback loop ensures that the organization's cybersecurity defenses remain effective and agile against new and emerging threats, not just static measures from years past.
What truly resonates here is that looking at cyber risk through the COSO lens isn't just theory. It allows management to clearly communicate their risk tolerance and priorities. This means that the cybersecurity teams know exactly where to focus their efforts on the systems most likely to be attacked and the most vulnerable points. It's about being smart and strategic, not just reactive, ensuring that every cybersecurity effort is aligned with the organization's overarching business objectives.
Right. It provides that essential structure.
It provides that essential structure for building a truly resilient digital frontier, demonstrating meticulous due diligence to stakeholders and auditors alike. Okay, if COSO gives us the strategic framework, then security policies, standards, and procedures are the actual blueprints and building blocks for strengthening cybersecurity defenses. How do these three elements work together?
That's a critical question about translating overarching security goals into actionable steps. These three levels form a crucial hierarchy, a cascading flow of authority and detail.
A hierarchy, okay.
At the uppermost level are security policies, which provide a strategic overview of the organization's security needs and strategic plan.
The big picture.
Exactly. Below that are standards, which are benchmarks used to achieve the goals defined by the policies.
The targets you need to hit.
Pretty much. And at the lowest level are standard operating procedures, SOPs, which are detailed, step-by-step instructions on how to perform specific tasks.
The actual instructions.
Right. Think of it like designing a building. The policy is the architect's vision, outlining the purpose and overall structure. The standards are the detailed building codes and material specifications, and the SOPs are the precise step-by-step instructions for each construction worker on how to lay bricks or install wiring. It's about ensuring every part of the vision is executed correctly.
So starting with security policies, they're the comprehensive guide, the actual foundation.
Precisely. Security policies are the bedrock of an organization's security framework. This comprehensive document outlines the extent to which security measures are applied to various company resources. It provides clear terms, definitive roles and responsibilities for everyone involved in security, and crucially, acceptable levels of risk that the organization is willing to tolerate.
So it defines the risk appetite.
It does. These policies also serve as vital evidence of due care by senior management, demonstrating that they've taken appropriate steps to protect against intrusions, attacks, and even natural disasters.
Uh-huh.
Organizations often create domain-specific policies to help partition different areas of focus. For instance, you might have user policies governing employee behavior related to IT, regulatory policies to ensure compliance with applicable laws like HIPAA or GDPR,
Right.
and system-based policies that cover specific networks or software configurations. Beyond these, specific processes like data classification, the selection and assessment of security controls, and user access authorization are all born from these overarching policies.
One specific policy that comes up a lot and is so crucial for employee conduct is the Acceptable Use Policy, or AUP. What makes that so important?
The Acceptable Use Policy is a fundamental control document designed to regulate and protect an organization's technology resources. It's critical because it assigns varying levels of responsibilities to different job roles, clearly lists acceptable behaviors for both employees and vendors when using company resources, and specifies the consequences for any violations.
The rules of the road for tech use.
Pretty much. It's common practice for users to sign and agree to the terms of an AUP before they are granted access to any company's systems, applications, or devices.
Yeah, I've signed plenty of those.
Right. A comprehensive AUP generally covers a wide range of elements, from defining the policy's purpose and scope, to outlining acceptable use of personal devices for business activities, approving specific mobile devices, detailing device maintenance, ensuring confidentiality, and clearly stating how the company monitors and enforces actions on its own devices.
And what you can't do.
Exactly. It also restricts certain activities and software downloads, specifies required security software, and explicitly lays out terms about termination if the policy is violated. It's essentially a user's digital code of conduct within the organization, clarifying expectations from day one.
And building on that, mobile device security policies seem like an increasingly massive area of concern today, especially with so many people working remotely.
They truly are. One of the greatest threats an organization faces stems from poor management of how mobile devices are used by employees.
Phones, tablets.
Phones, tablets, smartwatches. These devices give users access to the same sensitive data, systems, and applications as traditional laptops and desktops, but often with less inherent security.
Right, they're everywhere.
As such, strict policies coupled with the proper technological safeguards are absolutely necessary to channel mobile device use and interaction with the company's network. A mobile device AUP is a crucial subset of a company-wide AUP.
So what does it cover specifically?
It specifically stipulates things like mandatory password protection rules, multi-factor authentication requirements, any required encryption for data on the device, rules for web browsing, strict parameters for connecting to public networks.
Like public Wi-Fi.
Exactly, like public Wi-Fi risks, and policies regarding other applications or file downloads on these devices. It's about bringing the same rigor of desktop security to the increasingly complex mobile frontier, recognizing that every device is a potential entry point.
And what about bring your own device, or BYOD policies? That's a whole different ballgame since it's personal property involved, yet it's becoming so common.
You're right. BYOD policies introduce unique considerations that a general AUP might not fully address because personal devices are involved.
Yeah, it feels tricky.
It is. While they offer employees the convenience of using their own devices for work and network access, they also create specific challenges that must be addressed explicitly. For instance, the policy must clearly define the monitoring and enforcement of actions on personal devices.
Uh-oh. Privacy concerns.
Big time. It's about carefully balancing the company's need for security oversight with respecting employee privacy. Companies must enforce an appropriate level of monitoring to prevent intrusion from malicious actors, but also set clear standards for respecting employee privacy.
A fine line.
A very fine line. Then there's the question of ownership of data on the device. Generally, companies will assume that all information pertaining to company records, clients, vendors, and contacts is the property of the organization, not the employee, though specific legal nuances can exist.
Okay, company data on a personal phone belongs to the company.
Typically, yes. Another critical element is personal liability and indemnification, where BYOD policies stipulate when an employee is personally liable versus when liability rests with the company, and who is responsible for compensating for losses in the event of a breach tied to their device.
Who pays if something goes wrong?
Exactly. Lastly, restricted activities and application downloads on personal devices are crucial. Even though it's a personal device, company policies may disallow certain applications to prevent data breaches, data leakage, or unauthorized access to the company's network.
So no TikTok on the work profile, maybe?
Potentially, yeah, depending on the risk assessment. The risks of BYOD are significant. Leaking sensitive data, breaking compliance with regulations, and providing yet another inlet for malicious actors to access company data. So, while convenient for employees, BYOD requires incredibly thoughtful and detailed policies to mitigate these heightened risks, making it one of the more complex areas of security policy.
So those are the overarching policies that set the strategic tone. What comes next? The security standards.
Security standards are the organizational requirements that are either mandatory by law or adopted by companies as best practice guidelines. They sit at the next level of security rules beneath policies and essentially serve as a concrete course of action to achieve the security goals outlined in those policies. Standards will often define a minimum level of performance and provide specific recommendations on how to implement policies. Think of them as the detailed specifications that turn broad intent into measurable benchmarks.
Like specific settings or configurations?
Sometimes, yeah, or specific processes.
Mhm.
For instance, common standards include frameworks issued by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST,
Mystic.
which provide detailed guidelines for cybersecurity for federal agencies, but are widely adopted. We also see privacy laws like the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, from the European Union, which sets stringent rules for data privacy and security.
Right.
And then there are industry-specific standards, such as the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, or PCI DSS, which is mandatory for any organization handling credit card information.
PCI DSS for credit cards. Got it.
These standards provide the tangible benchmarks an organization must meet or chooses to meet for robust security.
And then bringing it all the way down to the ground level, the nuts and bolts, we have security standard operating procedures, or SOPs.
SOPs are the lowest level of documentation, providing incredibly detailed step-by-step instructions on how to perform specific security tasks or controls.
The how-to guides.
Exactly. These procedures often involve a combination of systems, software, and physical actions, all designed to ensure that the goals of the security policy and standards are meticulously achieved. A best practice here is to segment SOPs so that they are not all contained in a single document. This prevents one person from having access to instructions for every security practice in the company.
Separation of duties again.
You got it. Instead, policy owners in different departments can own the SOPs relevant to their specific job roles and company functions. This decentralization also means that when policies are adjusted or need updating, the relevant policy owners can make those adjustments accordingly, keeping the detailed instructions agile and accurate. These are the daily manuals that empower employees to execute security policies flawlessly.
It's powerful to see how this layered documentation, from broad policy down to granular SOPs, provides not just clarity, but true accountability.
Definitely.
It's not enough to simply declare "be secure."
Yeah.
You need a detailed manual for how to be secure and what precise steps to take when new challenges arise. This hierarchical approach ensures that the strategic vision set by frameworks like COSO is actually executable at every level of the organization, providing a clear roadmap for digital defense and demonstrating due diligence to auditors, like those in a SysOC2 engagement, who look for this exact level of systematic control. It's truly a systematic approach to security that leaves no room for ambiguity. Now let's turn our attention to the actual infrastructure that underpins so much of our digital lives networks.
Okay, the plumbing.
Right. To protect sensitive data, you first need to understand the network itself and the specific methods used to secure it. So let's unpack some common network components and then dive into how they're secured.
Yeah, think of a network as a bustling, intricate city. It's full of activity, but it also needs robust infrastructure, clear roads, and efficient traffic control to function safely.
Good analogy.
Understanding its individual components is absolutely key to understanding how to protect it effectively. At its core, a network is a system of physical and virtual devices connected using wired cables or wireless technology, all communicating via various protocols.
Protocols, the languages.
Exactly. These are essentially the common languages and sets of rules that govern how devices in the network talk to each other.
Okay. So what are the key hardware bits?
Well, while you likely know what a computer or a mobile phone is, it's important to recognize these are the endpoints people use. More foundational to network security are devices like access points, APs, which are your wireless connection points, allowing your laptop or phone to connect to a wired network wirelessly.
Wi-Fi boxes.
Basically, yeah. Routers are the traffic cops of the internet, controlling data flow by receiving incoming data packets and intelligently forwarding them only to the correct destination based on their IP addresses.
Directing traffic between networks.
Right. Switches are similar but even more efficient, connecting multiple devices within a single network and directing traffic only to its intended recipient.
More efficient than routers.
Within a single network, yes. Unlike older, less efficient hubs that broadcast data to everyone, a gateway is a powerful device that connects multiple networks that use different protocols, acting as a translator so these disparate networks can interact.
The translator.
The translator. And servers are the workhorses, providing core functions like running applications, storing files, or managing databases for all the connected devices. These are the critical pieces that form the backbone of any digital environment.
So, with all those pieces in play, how do organizations defend these digital gates? What are the key network security methods they employ?
Defending these networks is a multifaceted endeavor. A foundational method is network segmentation or isolation.
Splitting things up.
Exactly. This is the process of controlling network traffic so that certain parts of the network are either inaccessible or completely separated from outside communications, or even from other internal segments within the organization's own network. Think of it like creating separate, secure pockets within a building,
Okay.
which significantly improves overall network security by limiting lateral movement if an attacker breaches one segment.
So if one part gets hit, it doesn't spread easily.
That's the idea. Then we have firewalls. These are fundamental security tools, which can be physical devices, software, or a combination of both.
The classic defense.
The classic, yeah. Their job is to filter and monitor all incoming and outgoing network traffic, specifically to block malicious activity from attackers by enforcing a set of predefined rules. They are your first line of digital defense, acting as a gatekeeper.
Makes sense. What about wireless?
For wireless networks, the Service Set Identifier, SSID, is crucial. This is simply the name assigned to a wireless network.
Like My Home Wi-Fi.
Exactly. While it's usually broadcast so devices can find it, one way to improve wireless network security is to make networks less visible by disabling SSID broadcasting.
Hiding the network name. Does that really work?
Well, it means the router stops acting as a beacon, transmitting the SSID name, reducing its discoverability by attackers. But, it's important to remember this is just one small layer of defense. Determined attackers can still find hidden networks.
So security through obscurity. A bit.
A little bit, yeah. Not a primary defense. A virtual private network, VPN, is another powerful tool. It's a secure virtual network built on top of existing physical networks, providing secure communications through encryption.
VPNs. Everyone uses those now.
Pretty much. Imagine putting a letter inside another envelope addressed to a different secure destination. That's what tunneling does. It wraps your data packets in another layer, creating a secure tunnel through an otherwise less secure network.
Encapsulating the data.
Right. Often this uses Internet Protocol Security, IPsec, which employs cryptography for encryption, access control, and authentication. IPsec can encrypt either specific data, the payload, or entire packets.
So it scrambles the information inside the tunnel.
Exactly. This level of protection gives VPN users secure remote access to company applications, data, and systems as if they were physically present on the corporate network, which auditors, for example, in a SOC2 engagement, often verify.
And for Wi-Fi specifically, what are the standards that secure our wireless connections? WPA something.
Yeah, that would be Wi-Fi Protected Access, WPA, and its successors, WPA2 and WPA3. WPA is a security protocol that encrypts traffic between a wireless access point and a mobile device. Its first successor, WPA2, significantly enhanced security by adding an additional layer of data encryption using the Advanced Encryption Standard, or AES.
AES, that's strong encryption.
Very strong. The latest version, WPA3, provides even stronger security through more sophisticated encryption, more secure handshakes, the process of establishing a connection between devices, and robust password protections, making it much harder for attackers to crack wireless networks.
So always use WPA3 if you can.
Definitely the recommendation. These are essential for securing our increasingly wireless work environments.
What about security on the devices themselves?
Good point. Beyond network-wide security, there's endpoint security. This is the crucial notion that every device or host connected to a network should have its own form of local security, separate from other network-wide measures.
Security on the laptop itself, not just the network.
Exactly. Examples of these safeguards implemented on individual devices include antivirus and malware screening software, strong authentication and authorization mechanisms, auditing software, local host firewalls, and host-based intrusion detection and prevention systems.
Like a mini firewall on your computer.
Right. It's about ensuring that even if the network perimeter is somehow breached, individual devices still have their own robust defenses, acting as mini fortresses.
Okay. And I've heard the term hardening.
Yes, system hardening. This is a comprehensive, multi-pronged security approach that significantly reduces risk by minimizing the number of access points or attack vectors through which a company can be attacked.
Reducing the attack surface.
Precisely. This applies to all aspects of IT infrastructure, including applications, databases, operating systems, servers, and networking equipment, giving attackers few opportunities to infiltrate a system.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. Database hardening involves creating different privilege levels to separate admin users from those with tiered need-to-know access and encrypting data at rest. Endpoint hardening means removing administrative rights for users on local devices, restricting certain downloads, and implementing local firewalls and malware screening on all laptops.
No admin rights for regular users.
Generally, yes, that's a key principle. Network hardening involves revising firewall rules to remove unused ports and block unnecessary protocols. And server hardening includes physically segregating servers, even geographically separating backup servers, and rigorously testing new server connections for proper administrative rights, often after business hours to minimize disruption. It's about making every part of the system as resistant to attack as possible.
And one last thing, MA filtering.
Right, media access control, MAC filtering. This is a basic form of filtering where an access point blocks access to unauthorized devices using a list of approved MAC addresses. These are unique hardware identifiers for devices on a network.
Like a VIP list for devices.
Kind of.
Yeah.
While it's a security measure, it's easily bypassed by sophisticated attackers who can spoof MAC addresses, so it's typically used as just one very basic layer in a broader strategy, never as a primary defense.
So not very strong on its own.
Not really, no.
What truly stands out here is how many intricate layers of defense there are, from fundamental components to advanced encryption, all working in concert. It's not just about one strong lock. It's about fortifying every conceivable entry point. This makes the network not just a collection of devices, but a truly fortified digital barrier, where each component and method adds a crucial layer of protection, anticipating where attackers might look next. So we've covered the big picture with COSO and the vital infrastructure of networks. But who actually gets into the digital fortress, and what can they do once they're inside?
Right.
That brings us to authorization and authentication. These aren't just about usernames and passwords anymore, are they?
Absolutely not. This raises a crucial question. In a world of constantly evolving threats, how do organizations ensure that the right people have the right access and nothing more?
Yeah, the who gets in part.
Exactly. It's about far more than just a single login. It's about continuous validation and a profound reevaluation of trust. We're moving towards core principles that redefine how access is granted and maintained, reflecting a much more skeptical stance.
Skeptical how?
Well, the first and perhaps most revolutionary principle is zero trust.
Zero trust. Heard that buzzword.
It's more than a buzzword, really. This concept assumes that a company's network is always at risk, even after a user has initially authenticated.
Always at risk, even inside.
Yes. It fundamentally shifts a company's cybersecurity focus away from a one-time authentication event to continuous validation at every single point of a user's interaction with a network.
Continuous validation.
Okay. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, established the Zero Trust Network Architecture, or ZTNA, model precisely to help organizations implement these continuous authentication principles. The TNA is designed to prevent data breaches and limit internal lateral movement.
Attackers moving around inside.
Right, by implementing a set of system design principles based on the acknowledgement that threats exist both inside and outside traditional network boundaries. It eliminates implicit trust in any single element and instead requires continuous verification focusing on users, assets, and resources in real time to determine access and other system responses.
So it's essentially trust no one, verify everything all the time. That sounds incredibly challenging to implement.
It is challenging, but profoundly effective. NIST outlines several overarching tenets for zero trust architecture that illustrate this. All devices and data sources are considered resources, even those not directly managed by the organization.
Even personal devices.
Even potentially, yes. All communications must be secure regardless of the network's location. Access to company resources is granted on a possession basis, meaning authorization isn't permanent.
Per session, so you have to revalidate often.
Potentially, yes, or based on context changes. Access is determined by using dynamic policies and other environmental or behavioral attributes, adapting to changing contexts. The company continuously monitors and measures the integrity and security of all assets. All authorization and authentication mechanisms are dynamic and strictly enforced prior to granting access.
Strict enforcement.
And finally, detailed information is continuously collected about the current state of a company's assets, infrastructure, and communications to constantly improve security. This is a profound shift from traditional perimeter security, moving from trust implicitly if inside the firewall to always verify.
Beyond zero trust, what other core principles guide access in a secure environment?
Next is least privilege. This is the notion that users and systems are granted the minimum authorization and system resources needed to perform their specific function.
Only what you absolutely need.
Exactly. The goal is to prevent privilege creep, where access to systems gradually increases over time as a person's job role evolves. For example, if an employee gets promoted or changes positions, new permissions might be granted, but the old, no longer needed access from their prior role should be immediately removed.
Cleaning up old access.
Crucial. Violating least privilege significantly increases risk, as it gives attackers more capabilities if they manage to compromise an account.
Okay. And need to know. How's that different?
Closely related is the need-to-know principle. This follows the idea that employees are given only the data they absolutely must know to perform their job.
Focused on data, not just access.
Right. The distinction here from least privilege is subtle but important. Need to know focuses on the data itself that is required for the job, while least privilege focuses on the access needed to perform the job. One is about information, the other about capabilities.
Got it. And whitelisting versus blacklisting.
And then we have whitelisting versus blacklisting. This is a fundamental choice in how you manage software permissions. Whitelisting is the process of identifying a list of applications that are authorized to run on an organization's systems and only allowing those specific programs to execute.
Only approved apps can run.
Exactly. Conversely, blacklisting identifies a list of applications that are not authorized on a network and actively prevents those from running. These rules are typically enforced by automated software programs.
Blocking known bad apps.
Right. The surprising truth is that whitelisting is fundamentally more secure. It's the difference between saying we'll block known bad apps, blacklist, versus we'll only allow known good apps, whitelist. The latter closes the door on unknown future threats by default.
Because new bad apps pop up all the time.
Precisely. Whitelisting is inherently more proactive.
So how do we actually identify someone and then authenticate them in this increasingly complex and multi-layered world?
Identification and authentication are two distinct but interconnected concepts that occur in one multi-step process when users validate their right to access systems, applications, or even physical locations.
Two steps.
Two steps. Identification is simply the act of claiming or asserting one's identity, perhaps through a username or an identification card.
I am Bob.
Basically. Authentication is the subsequent process of validating that identity claim, which could involve using a password, scanning an ID card with proprietary technology, or more advanced methods.
Prove you're Bob.
Exactly. The process always flows. Identity is claimed first, and then it is authenticated. This typically requires an initial registration process where the user creates their foundational identity, often by submitting primary identification like a social security card, driver's license, or passport, from which secondary forms of identity can then be derived.
So once identity is claimed and validated, what are some of the cutting-edge technologies used to authenticate beyond just a simple password.
There are indeed many authentication technologies available to secure access to confidential data, applications, and networks, going far beyond traditional passwords.
Okay, let's hear them.
Context-aware. Authentication is used to identify mobile device users by analyzing contextual data points, such as the time of access, the user's geographic location, the specific point of access.
Where you are, what time it is.
Right. Whether it's a mobile app, desktop browser, or call center, or the IP address, this adds a layer of dynamic risk assessment, adapting security based on the current context.
Smart. What else?
Digital signatures. These are encrypted electronic stamps of authentication attached to a message. They provide non-repudiation.
Non-repudiation. Fancy word.
It just means the person who signed it can't later deny they sent it. It's undeniable proof of origin and integrity, like a unique, tamper-proof wax seal on a letter. These utilize cryptography, with the sender encrypting the message with a private key and the receiver decrypting it with the sender's public key.
Okay, proof it's really from you.
Exactly. Then there's single sign-on, SSO. This is a technique that allows users to authenticate just once for a single session across multiple resources or devices.
Log in once for everything. Convenient.
Very convenient, yeah. For example, logging into an app on a smart TV might only require you to enter a one-time code displayed on the TV on your approved smartphone, authenticating you across different platforms without repeated logins. It balances convenience with security.
Okay. MFA, multi-factor.
Right, multi-factor authentication, MFA, is increasingly critical. This method uses two or more distinct factors to validate someone's identity. It often combines something you know, like a password, with something you have, like a security fob generating a changing PIN, or something you are, like a fingerprint.
Password plus phone code is common.
Very common example, yes. And that brings us to biometrics. This uses unique human physical characteristics or impressions to verify identity, such as facial recognition, fingerprint or palm scans, iris scans, or even keystroke patterns.
Using your body is the key.
Essentially, these are powerful because they rely on inherent traits that are difficult to forge.
That's an impressive array of technologies. But for all the advanced methods, password management still feels like the double-edged sword of cybersecurity. It's everywhere, but often a major weakness.
You're absolutely right. Strong password management is critical because it is both the most common form of authentication and, unfortunately, the most common method of attack for malicious actors.
Why are passwords so weak?
Well, passwords, whether a string of letters, numbers, or special characters, have inherent weaknesses that make them vulnerable. People frequently use easily guessed passwords, reuse them across multiple accounts, share them, never change them, or write them down because they're hard to remember.
Guilty of maybe one or two of those.
We all are sometimes. Short passwords are easily susceptible to brute force attacks, where attackers use rapid-fire entry attempts and try all possible combinations until the correct one is found. Moreover, passwords saved by companies and databases accessible by the web are frequently breached, exposing user credentials.
Database breaches, yeah. Huge problem.
Huge. To counter these weaknesses, password complexity standards are highly recommended. The longer a password is, the exponentially more secure it becomes due to the vast increase in potential combinations.
Longer is better. How long?
For example, a 4-character password using all uppercase, lowercase letters, and digits has millions of combinations, but extending it to 8 characters results in trillions of combinations, significantly increasing the time and computational power required for a brute force attack. NIST recommends at least 8 characters, though many companies now require 12 or more.
12 plus, okay.
The focus is increasingly shifting away from frequent changes towards requiring unique, long passwords that are managed by dedicated software.
Password managers.
Exactly. This brings us to password managers and storage. These applications are designed to store a user's passwords, not as plain text, but by using hashing.
Hashing, what's that?
Hashing is the process of converting password into an illegible, fixed-length string of text using specific hash algorithms, like secure hash algorithms or SHAs. When a user enters a password, that word is put through the same hashing algorithm, and the computed hash value is then compared to the hash value stored in the database. If they match, access is granted.
So the actual password isn't stored?
Correct, just the scrambled hash. Hashed passwords are generally considered a one-way process, meaning they are not easily reversible. So if an attacker gains access to a database with only hashed passwords, they first need to determine the hashing algorithm used, then use brute force guessing parsing software to generate hashes to compare, making it much harder to crack user credentials directly.
Much harder, but not impossible.
Not impossible, especially for common passwords, but significantly harder than plain text.
Once someone is authorized and authenticated, how do their initial access rights get set up? That sounds like provisioning.
Provisioning is the crucial process in identity management where an organization creates a user's account and provisions it with privileges specifically based on their job role.
Setting up the new user account.
Right. This is often an automated yet protected process, and it's absolutely critical in creating a valid identification that can later be authenticated. It's typically a part of the employee onboarding process alongside background checks. It's vital that no rights are provisioned to individuals who don't meet company standards. Furthermore, for users whose access is administered by the organization, their system credentials must be removed promptly when their access is no longer authorized. This prevents the privilege creep we discussed earlier.
Deprovisioning when someone leaves.
Equally important. In a SOC2 engagement, service auditors will often inspect access request forms for a sample of new employees to verify that access provisioning was approved before any access was granted, ensuring proper controls are in place from the very beginning.
And what about authenticating the actual device being used to connect to a network?
That's device authentication. This technique focuses on verifying the identity of the device making a connection request rather than just the user's credentials. It might involve recognizing a unique IP address or an ASCII address.
Checking the machine, not just the person.
Exactly. While it's weak as a standalone authentication method, as MSE addresses can be spoofed, it significantly strengthens a multi-factor approach where a user is required to enter login credentials and use a valid recognized device. It adds another layer of verification, making it harder for unauthorized devices to access the network, even with stolen user credentials.
So another factor in MFA sometimes.
It can be, yes.
It's clear that trust no one, or zero trust, is rapidly becoming the guiding principle. Every access point, every user, every device is continually verified. This represents a fundamental shift in how security is approached, moving from traditional perimeter defense to continuous internal validation and granular control. This ensures that even if an initial barrier is breached, the internal defenses are robust enough to limit damage and contain threats, making the digital fortress far more resilient. Moving beyond who gets in and how, let's talk about finding and fixing weaknesses before they're exploited. This is where vulnerability management comes in.
Ah, the proactive side.
Right. It sounds like something IT departments just do, but there's a lot more to it, right?
Indeed. Vulnerability management is a crucial proactive security practice. It's not just about reacting to attacks, it's about systematically identifying, classifying, mitigating, and fixing known weaknesses within a system.
Finding the holes before the bad guys do.
Exactly. This raises an important question. How do organizations stay ahead when threats are constantly evolving? Its purpose is to prevent the exploitation of IT vulnerabilities that could potentially harm a system or organization, making it an integral part of computer and network security and playing a vital role in overall IT risk management.
So how does it work in practice?
To meet its objectives, an organization employs ongoing detection and monitoring procedures to identify configuration changes that might introduce new vulnerabilities, and they also stay alert to newly discovered vulnerabilities. They conduct periodic vulnerability scans, especially after any significant environmental changes, and crucially, they take timely action to remediate any identified deficiencies.
Constant scanning and fixing.
It's a continuous cycle.
So what are the actual tools and frameworks organizations use to find these weak spots? How do they get started?
Vulnerability management is administered using a variety of tools and often by applying comprehensive frameworks. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, CSF, is frequently used to implement vulnerability management solutions because it provides a systematic approach.
NIST again. Okay. How does it break down?
It's broken down into 5 core interconnected functions. Identify. This involves discovering all your IT resources, systems, data, assets, and even employees, and understanding their vulnerabilities. It also means grasping your business environment and the governance policies that dictate how security is handled.
Know what you have.
Step 1. Protect. Here, the framework guides the creation of safeguards against identified vulnerabilities. This includes establishing measures like robust identity and access controls, ensuring asset security, and continuously informing employees about potential threats and best practices.
Put defenses in place.
Right. Detect. This function defines activities that can quickly identify vulnerabilities in real time, such as searching for anomalies in system behavior, performing continuous monitoring of networks and systems, and verifying that existing protective measures are actually
Yeah.
effective.
Find problems quickly.
Exactly. Respond. The CSF helps organizations put activities in place to react swiftly to discovered vulnerabilities. This includes thorough analysis of the issue, executing mitigating activities to prevent the vulnerability from affecting other parts of the organization, and clearly communicating the issue and chosen response internally.
React when something is found.
Recover. This final function helps an organization transition from a vulnerable state back to a secure operational one. Relevant activities involve implementing a robust recovery plan, making improvements based on lessons learned from the incident, and delivering clear internal communications to the appropriate staff about the recovery process.
Get back to normal and learn from it.
Right. It's a continuous loop, not a one-time fix.
What about specific tools? Scanners.
Yes, beyond the framework, organizations use specific tools. Vulnerability scanners are applications that actively test a company's systems for known security risks. They work by checking system configurations and software versions against a regularly updated database of known threats.
Checking against known issues.
Right. Scanners look for open network ports that could be exploited, analyze data packets transmitting across systems, identify protocols being used, and perform fingerprinting, which identifies the type of operating system and applications running on target systems.
Yeah.
What's critical to understand is that these same scanners can also be used by attackers to find weaknesses in organizations.
Oh, the tools can be used by both sides.
Absolutely. Attackers often time their campaigns to coincide with predictable database updates, leveraging the same information to launch their attacks.
And how do vulnerability assessments fit into this? Are they just running the scanners?
Not quite. Vulnerability assessments are typically performed as part of an initial risk analysis and then subsequently conducted quarterly or annually. They often employ vulnerability scanners, with results observed over time to determine if certain threats persist.
Looking at trends over time.
Exactly. In some cases, an organization might identify a vulnerability but be unable to implement an immediate solution because it would hinder critical operations. In such situations, the company may continue to operate with the exposure until a solution that mitigates the vulnerability while maintaining operational efficiency becomes available.
So sometimes you have to accept a risk temporarily.
Sometimes, yes, with compensating controls, ideally. A significant ancillary benefit of going through these assessments is gaining an aggregate view of multiple IT processes and insights from employee interviews across the organization that might not normally be evaluated collectively.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Right. This holistic view allows management to see how vulnerabilities in one part of the organization can create ripple effects in others, which is invaluable.
It sounds like a constant game of whack-a-mole, but with much more structure.
Yeah.
How do they keep track of all these identified vulnerabilities, especially across different vendors?
That's where the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures (CVE) dictionary comes in. This is a standardized database of security vulnerabilities, providing unique identifiers for different vulnerabilities and risk exposures.
A common language for vulnerabilities.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's maintained by the Might Here Corporation, and as new vulnerabilities are discovered, they are added to this dictionary with a unique CVE number, like CVE 2023 something something.
Okay.
The CVE dictionary is incredibly important because it standardizes the recognition and naming of vulnerabilities that were once identified by various companies using differing, often confusing, names or descriptions. Before CVE, managing security gaps was incredibly difficult because there wasn't an effective universal dictionary.
Made it hard to track things.
Very hard. Now, cybersecurity products often denote themselves as CVE compatible, which tells customers that the product can address specific, identified vulnerabilities, providing much-needed clarity and consistency.
And patch management. That fits here too, right?
Absolutely. Lastly, we have patch management, which is a critical part of minimizing security threats and works hand in hand with vulnerability management solutions. As bugs and vulnerabilities are discovered in applications, software vendors release updates called patches to allow customers to correct those weaknesses.
Software updates.
Basically, an effective patch management process involves IT administrators first assessing the update for its applicability to their company's specific environment. Then they test the patch on isolated systems to ensure it doesn't cause new problems.
Test before you deploy. Crucial.
Oh, yeah, absolutely crucial. After that, they plan the implementation with management, deploy the patch across the relevant systems, and finally validate that it was successfully implemented. This meticulous process, often inspected by auditors in a SOC 2 engagement, is what keeps software secure against newly discovered flaws.
It's fascinating how this isn't just about fixing things after they break, but having a systematic, almost anticipatory approach to constantly find and mend potential weaknesses.
Hmm.
It's a continuous cycle, especially with new threats emerging daily. This proactive stance, fueled by frameworks like NIST CSF and tools like vulnerability scanners, is truly what allows organizations to stay one step ahead in the ever-evolving cybersecurity landscape. We've touched on individual security tools, but effective cybersecurity isn't about one magic bullet. It's about layers, almost like an onion. What's the core idea behind this layered security?
Yeah, the onion analogy works well. The purpose of layered security is to protect an organization using a diversified set of security tactics so that a single cyber attack or vulnerability doesn't compromise the entire system.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Pretty much. This is crucial because it creates redundancy. If one layer fails, another is there to catch it. It essentially eliminates a single point of failure by not relying on just one defense.
Makes sense.
These layered approaches typically combine physical access controls, logical and technical controls, and administrative controls to provide this crucial control redundancy, specifically designed to offset possible security defects that could arise in the event of a multi-pronged breach. It's about building a fortress, not just putting up a fence.
So it's about having multiple lines of defense. Is that what defense in depth means?
Precisely. Defense in depth is one of the most common and effective layered security strategies. It focuses on a multi-layered security approach that deliberately does not rely on technology alone.
Not just tech.
Not just tech. Instead, it thoughtfully combines people, policies, and technology alongside both physical and logical access controls. Each of these elements forms a crucial layer contributing to the overall defense-in-depth strategy, creating a truly robust security posture.
Okay, break down those layers, people.
Let's quickly break down those layers. Personnel refers to the human element. Organizations must have cybersecurity experts who can effectively operate security functions and tools, and crucially understand how all these multi-layered defenses interact holistically. Without skilled people who are vigilant and well-trained, even the best technology falls short.
The human firewall element again.
Exactly. Policies are the rules governing how technology should be used, implemented, and monitored over time to ensure that the tools in place are working as designed. Technology is critical, but policies guide its effective and secure application, turning security tools into strategic assets.
The rules we talked about earlier.
Right. Technology encompasses the technical controls applied in a defense-in-depth strategy. These include a wide array of security solutions like intrusion detection and prevention systems, IDSC, antivirus software, firewalls, and endpoint security measures. These are the digital shields and alarms.
The actual tool.
Physical access controls are tangible security measures designed to deter and prevent unauthorized physical access to an organization's IT infrastructure. Examples include surveillance cameras, secure gates, locks on doors and cabinets, fences, badge-controlled access systems, and restricted access to climate-controlled server rooms.
Locks, cameras, guards.
Yep. If someone can physically access your servers, all digital security can be bypassed.
Good point. And logical controls.
And finally, logical access controls are rule-based controls carried out by software and hardware designed to prevent unauthorized digital access. These controls are deeply embedded in user authentication systems and software, requiring validation of identity through login credentials, multi-factor authentication, and different permission-based access methods. So it's truly about comprehensive protection, from the physical perimeter to the innermost digital processes.
That makes perfect sense. And the idea of redundancy and diversification seems to be central to this approach, almost like duplicating your efforts for greater strength.
It is fundamental. Regardless of the specific layered security solution chosen, using two or more different security measures to protect the same resource offers organizations additional yet distinct protective measures in the event that one layer fails.
Backup defenses.
Exactly. This is how you truly eliminate a single point of failure. Redundancy and diversity also help organizations counter attacks that specifically target different weaknesses an organization might have, because one attack might not bypass all diverse layers.
Attackers might get past one layer, but not the next.
That's the hope. The idea is to have duplication within duplication for even greater security. For instance, a company's layered security solution might involve a single process coupled with one access control. By further bifurcating either the process or the access control, perhaps by introducing another person to perform one function or by physically separating components, the overall security becomes more diverse and potentially more effective.
Okay, how is this redundancy actually done?
This form of redundancy can be administered through several key methods: layering processes, isolating processes, and concealing data, and even hardware segmentation.
Layering processes, like multiple steps.
Let's elaborate on process layering and isolation. Layering processes adds redundancy by breaking up an operation into smaller, more manageable chunks. These smaller chunks can then be handled by different people, performed by separate machines or computers, or completely isolated from other parts of the process.
Splitting up tasks.
Right. This is often done to protect critical pieces of an operation or sensitive information, ensuring that certain components are more protected than less important parts of the overall process. For example, in a bank, one person might remotely grant access to a vault, while a different person physically removes the contents, and yet another person transports those contents to another branch, with all participants meticulously counting or reconciling the contents.
Separation of duties again.
Very much so. Process isolation using a machine or computer involves segmenting processes using logical controls, forming memory access constraints. Each process is allocated a distinct portion of memory or space on that machine, ensuring processes run separately so that one cannot influence or compromise another.
Keeping programs separate on the same machine.
Exactly. Then we have abstraction and concealment.
Abstraction. Hiding complexity.
Abstraction is the process of hiding the complexity of certain tasks, presenting only the relevant information to a specific person performing a function. While its primary intent is to simplify complex tasks, it also plays a vital role in cybersecurity by limiting user access to only the level of detail needed to perform their job.
Like least privilege, in a way.
Related, yes. For instance, access controls and user rights might be assigned to a particular object, group of objects, or a type of privilege, allowing a user to only access and perform certain functions. This enables security administrators to easily create and assign different levels of privileges to each user, reducing the risk of accidental or malicious overaccess.
Okay, and concealment.
Concealment, while similar, primarily focuses on hiding the data itself. Unlike abstraction, which removes underlying details to present essential information, concealment is implemented by assigning users a security level that must align with the same security level assigned to specific sets of data, sections of applications, or certain objects. This ensures that only those who explicitly need access to particular data actually get it.
You need to know for data.
Right. Finally, there's hardware segmentation. This achieves the same goal as process isolation, but enforces separation physically with separate machines.
Using totally separate computers.
Exactly. Instead of logical boundaries within a single machine, you have distinct physical hardware. This form of segmentation is not as common as logical separation, but when it is used, it's typically applied to very large organizations with geographically distributed networks, where physical separation adds another robust layer of defense.
This really highlights that cybersecurity isn't a single solution. It's a comprehensive strategy, an onion with many layers, each designed to catch what the previous one might miss. It's truly a defense in-depth approach, acknowledging that no single defense is foolproof, and that redundancy across people, policies, technology, and physical controls is essential for true resilience. It's about strategically building a fortress, not just haphazardly putting up a few fences. To wrap up our deep dive into threat mitigation, let's look at the broad categories of controls that cybersecurity professionals employ. It's like having different types of guardians. Some stop threats, some alert you, and some fix the damage. Can you explain these three types of controls?
Certainly. This raises an important question. How do organizations implement policies, procedures, and technology to mitigate threats at all points before, during, and after an incident?
The whole life cycle.
Right. These controls are typically grouped into preventive, detective, and corrective, each serving a distinct purpose in the security lifecycle. And before we dive in, let's quickly define authorization in this context. It's the formal process of granting access privileges to a user, program, or process by someone with the authority to do so.
Okay. So, first up, preventive controls. Stopping things before they happen.
First, we have preventive controls. Their primary goal is to thwart malicious activity from ever occurring. They actively try to prevent attackers from gaining access to devices, applications, and networks. Some key tactics and examples include safeguarding practices. This involves strong software and hardware controls coupled with well-designed policies. Think strong passwords, mandatory multi-factor authentication, performing background checks for new hires, locking unattended devices, and strict guidelines regarding sensitive data handling.
Basic good hygiene.
Foundational stuff, yeah. Education and training. Informing employees about cybersecurity risks and the corporate tools in place to mitigate them serves as a crucial preventive control, complementing technical safeguards. A well-informed employee is a powerful defense.
Framing in?
Always important. Regular security updates. Broad and comprehensive security enhancements must occur regularly for an organization's physical and logical security measures to stay protected against the latest threats.
Keeping things up to date.
Encryption. This involves converting data into an illegible format, both when it's stored, at rest, and when it's being transmitted in transit. If the data is compromised or stolen, it's rendered useless to attackers.
Scrambling the data.
Right. Firewalls. These are indispensable. A firewall continuously monitors and filters network traffic based on predefined rules, ensuring that only trusted parties and networks can connect or interact with an organization's network, thereby preventing threat actors from compromising it.
The gatekeeper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Physical barriers. Tangible obstructions designed to deter and prevent unauthorized physical access to IT infrastructure. Examples include locked doors and cabinets, badge entry systems, security guards, fences, gates, and surveillance systems.
The physical locks and guards, yeah.
Intrusion prevention systems, IPS.
Yeah.
An IPS is a network security solution that actively detects and stops cyber attacks before they reach targeted systems. Unlike a firewall that filters, an IPS receives a direct feed of traffic, meaning all data coming into a network passes through it for real-time threat analysis and blocking, making it an active defender.
So it actively blocks attacks it sees.
That's the idea. Yes, it tries to prevent them in real time.
That's a lot of ways to stop attacks before they even start. And within preventive controls, how do the various access controls authorization models work to grant permissions? You mentioned authorization earlier.
Right. Access controls are security measures organizations put in place to allow access only to authorized employees. These controls can be applied through several key authorization models. Discretionary access control, DAC. This is a decentralized model where data owners, custodians, or creators manage their own access to the data or objects they own or created. Owners can grant access to others based on their judgment or delegate tasks.
The owner decides who gets in.
Basically. In contrast, mandatory access control, MAC, is a centralized, non-discretionary model where administrators manage and enforce rules consistently across an entire environment. Access is not based on identity, but on a general set of rules governing the system, offering high security but less flexibility.
Central admin control. More rigid.
Typically, yes. Role-based access control, RBAC. This is very common. It administers access based on a user's job role rather than individually assigning permissions. Job roles are categorized with specific levels of access or privilege.
Access based on your job title.
Exactly. If a user changes positions, their access level is automatically modified based on predefined rules for that new role, streamlining management.
Simpler to manage.
Generally, a rule-based access control manages access to areas, devices, or databases according to a predetermined set of rules or access permissions independent of the user's role. An administrator sets these security permissions based on defined criteria.
Like if user is in group X, allow access to folder Y.
Something like that, yes. A policy-based access control, PBAC, uses a combination of user roles and policies, consisting of rules, to maintain and dynamically evaluate user access. PBAC is more like a framework that evaluates a user's access based on what is known about that user, such as their identity, role, security clearance, operational need, and associated risk.
More dynamic and flexible.
More flexible, yes, especially for growing organizations where policies change more frequently. Finally, risk-based access controls apply controls based on the risk level of the asset being accessed, the identity of the user, their intentions, and the security risk between the user and the system.
More security for riskier actions.
Right. If high-risk systems are being accessed, they usually have stricter security measures, like multi-factor authentication, whereas lower-risk scenarios might only require password optimizing resource allocation.
And how were these authorization models actually implemented with specific technical mechanisms?
There are different control mechanisms to implement these authorization models. A prime example is the Access Control List,
ACL. Okay.
which is a list of rules outlining which users have permission to access certain resources, like a file, folder, directory, or other IT resource. An ACL also administers account restrictions, governing what type of action a user can execute, such as read-only access, editing privileges, or the ability to run a program.
The permission list.
Essentially, yes. Access and account restrictions are enforced by controlling network traffic based on the rules defined in the ACL. ACLs can be broad, filtering all of an organization's network traffic, or, more focused, filtering access to specific files or directories for different users. They are a foundational tool for granular permission management.
So we have all these ways to prevent attacks. But what if something gets through? That's where detective controls come in, right? Catching threats in action before they cause too much damage.
Precisely. Detective controls are designed to detect a threat event while it's occurring and also provide crucial assistance during investigations and audits after an event has occurred. They are the eyes and ears of the cybersecurity system.
The alarms.
Good way to put it. Examples include Network Intrusion Detection Systems, NIDS. An NIDS monitors incoming traffic across a network, matching specific elements of that traffic to a library of known attacks. When an event meeting predefined criteria is detected, it sends system alerts, acting like a digital alarm system.
Detects known attack patterns.
Right. Antivirus software monitoring. This works by scanning files in real time and comparing them to a library of known viruses. Scheduled scans should occur automatically and regularly. If viruses are detected, they are immediately removed or quarantined, limiting their spread.
Real-time scanning.
Network monitoring tools. Various tools help here, such as packet sniffers, which analyze data packets being transmitted, or network performance monitoring, NPM tools that measure network statistics like packet loss and uptime, indicating unusual activity.
Looking for weird network behavior.
Exactly. Log analysis. This involves the recording and monitoring of data to analyze it for anomalies, trends, or patterns that may indicate unauthorized events. This can be a manual or automated process, turning raw data into actionable intelligence.
Checking the logs for clues.
Crucial for investigation. Intrusion Detection Systems, IDS. An IDS scans the environment, monitoring and analyzing network or system events to provide real-time or near real-time warnings of unauthorized access attempts.
Okay, but you mentioned IPS before. What's the difference again?
Right. The key difference between an IDS and an IPS, intrusion prevention system, is crucial for understanding their roles. An IDS is like a high-tech smoke detector. It tells you there's a fire. An IPS is like that, plus an automated sprinkler system. It detects the fire and immediately tries to put it out.
Detect versus detect and prevent.
You got it. Both are vital, but their roles in active defense are distinct. Auditors, in a SOC2 engagement, for example, often inspect IDS configurations to ensure continuous monitoring is in place.
And finally, after a threat has been detected, or even caused damage, what are the corrective controls that fix the damage and strengthen defenses for the future?
Corrective controls are intended to fix known vulnerabilities resulting from recent security incidents, internal self-assessments, or changes in industry practices. Once these controls are effectively put in place, they can then also function as preventive or detective controls for future incidents, closing the loop on the security lifecycle.
Cleaning up the mess and learning from it.
Pretty much. Examples include reconfigurations. Modifying an application or system configuration to rectify known vulnerabilities can restore affected operations and prevent further damage. This might involve revamping firewall rules, retooling an operating system settings, or altering access control settings.
Fixing the settings that allowed the problem.
Right. Upgrades and patches. As we discussed, security patches and software or application upgrades are implemented to enhance system performance, add new features, and crucially, plug security holes that have been discovered.
Patching again. Corrective and preventive.
It often serves both roles, yes. Revised policies and procedures. Periodically reviewing and updating organizational practices can eliminate security issues without requiring new technology or system modifications. This could be as simple as splitting one job into two for better segregation of duties, adding an additional level of review, or changing the way sensitive data is handled.
Changing the process to make it safer.
Updated employee training. Gaps in employee knowledge about cyber attack risks can be reduced or eliminated by training employees to recognize fraud schemes, teaching them how to react when suspected fraud occurs, and guiding them to change existing behaviors to prevent future incidents.
More training based on what happened.
Exactly. Learning from mistakes. Recovery and continuity plans. Organizations absolutely must have robust plans in place to quickly recover from a disaster or attack and continue operating, minimizing the period of business interruption. This is often the ultimate test of an organization's resilience.
Disaster recovery plans.
Essential. Antivirus software removal of malicious viruses. Most modern antivirus programs are designed not only to identify actual or potential viruses, but also to expunge those viruses, eliminating the threat from infected systems.
Cleaning infected files.
Yes. Virus quarantining. This involves isolating actual or suspected viruses to remove the threat from the rest of a company's network. This is usually accomplished automatically by antivirus software or manually after suspicious activity has been flagged from system logs containing the outbreak before it spreads.
Putting the bad stuff in a safe box.
Good analogy, yeah.
This final section truly ties everything together, doesn't it? It's not just about stopping attacks at the perimeter. It's about a continuous, dynamic cycle of prevention, detection, and correction.
It really is a cycle.
Organizations must continuously adapt and deploy a multifaceted arsenal of controls to safeguard their digital assets, recognizing that the battle against cyber threats is never truly over. It's a testament to constant vigilance and evolution in the face of persistent challenges. Wow, what an insightful deep dive today into the intricate world of cybersecurity threat mitigation. We've journeyed from the high-level COSA framework that guides an organization's entire approach, down through the detailed blueprints of policies, standards, and procedures, explored the intricacies of network components and their security methods, dissected the critical role of authorization and authentication, understood the proactive stance of vulnerability management, and finally, appreciated the power of layered defenses and the different types of controls that keep our digital world safe.
Indeed. What truly stands out here is the sheer breadth and depth of strategies organizations must employ. It's a constant adaptation, a multifaceted approach to a constantly evolving threat landscape.
Yeah.
The key takeaway for you is that cybersecurity isn't a single product or a one-time fix. It's an ongoing, interconnected ecosystem where every piece plays a vital role in building resilience.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? As you navigate your own digital life, perhaps this deep dive will prompt you to think about the layers of security protecting your information, from the strength of your passwords to the importance of regular software updates.
Yeah, think about your own setup.
Maybe it'll make you consider, what's one small step you can take today to strengthen your personal digital defenses, understanding that you are a crucial part of the security chain? After all, even a small improvement can make a big difference when it comes to digital safety. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating deep dive. We hope you feel much more informed and confident about the tremendous efforts behind safeguarding our digital world. Until next time, stay curious and stay secure.